Good evening, everyone. My name is Eddy Adra. I'm the CEO at Coast Funds, but maybe more importantly, I'm a father of two beautiful young boys, one a 3 and a 6-month-old. And so if you see online big bags under my eyes, that's just lack of sleep that comes with parenthood. So bear with me, but really excited to be here. And it's great to be here with so many leaders who share a commitment to building strong, lasting partnerships for change. And so thank you for inviting me here tonight. Tonight I want to reflect on a question that we grapple with quite often. When should government and philanthropy intersect? At Coast Funds, we work in service of First Nations in the Great Bear Rainforest in Haida Gwaii, supporting their stewardship and sustainable economic development goals. Through that work, we've seen firsthand what happens when philanthropy and government come together in the right way, and why the sequence and the intent behind it matters. In our experience, after communities, philanthropic partners are often the first to move. They come in early, way before a government program exists, and way before a full established framework comes into place. That early commitment does more than just fund activity. It creates the space for innovation, for something new to come forth. Philanthropy brings flexibility, responsiveness, and a willingness to take risks that government, for good reasons, can't always take. And so that early investment allows communities and organizations to test ideas, set priorities, and establish the models that are necessary to demonstrate what can be possible. And when it works, it builds the credibility and the momentum that's needed to bring all of us together to the table. And when it doesn't, it generates the thoughtful and necessary insights that others can learn from. So it's always a win-win. And once those philanthropic dollars are in, they really become powerful levers. We've seen that through the Great Bear Sea development and just generally through the overall project finance for permanence model. Philanthropy supported the proof of concept that gave the government the confidence to follow suit. And when that happens, that partnership shifts from funding isolated projects to sustaining overall systems for conservation, for stewardship, and more importantly, for long-term sustainability and prosperity. And just as this is important, this sequence changes the nature of the conversation. It's no longer about who will fund what somehow, but also changes it to how can we align resources and accountability for the shared outcomes. That sequences also changes the overall power dynamic that comes from money. When communities and their partners are able to move first, they're in the driver's seat, and that's really crucial. They're able to set the table that defines the conditions for partnership and then invite others, including government and philanthropy, to join. It's a very different dynamic than waiting for a government program designed by someone else that they're trying to fit into. It means that when government funding arrives, it comes into a framework that's already shaped by the shared values and community priorities, rather than redefining those. It's a subtle shift, but one that fundamentally changes outcome and ownership. And so the real question is, when should government and philanthropy intersect? In my view, the intersection works best when they play each other's strengths. When philanthropy brings its agility and experimentation, and then the government brings scale and durability. Philanthropy can take the first steps to de-risk ideas, test approaches, improve the feasibility. But for long-term system changes, government investment is essential. You can't really break those two apart. And so the key is where they meet. The intersection really should happen around the work of communities and not above them. I'll say that again because that to me is really crucial. The intersection should happen around the work of communities and not above them. When philanthropy and government meet through those doing the work, their combined impact can be magnified and really made sustainable. At their best, these intersections aren't about just blending funding streams, they're about aligning the intent. And so when philanthropy and government come together with community-led organizations and communities, the results are more enduring, they're more equitable, and they're more grounded in the local realities. And that's what we've seen in partnerships in the Great Bear Sea. Real progress happens when real people are at the table and when the table is set by those closest to the work. In our case, the First Nations we serve. Thank you.